Alright, YouTube, it's time for the Occult Video 76, the New World Order, the Illuminati, Bavarian Illuminati, secret societies, cults, Masons, basically everything connected to this. I will say this, I consider very little of this to be related to the occult. When people talk about the Georgia Guidestones or the Masons or something, they're typically talking about philosophical and social orders that are not directly connected to any real spirituality beyond, oh yeah, we happen to believe in certain spiritual tenets. For instance, the Masons are probably the best example. I saw a video years ago where there was a Freemason, had all the insignia, had the little cap and everything, was coming out of the Masonic temple. So obviously a real Mason. And the person with the phone or camera or whatever confronted them and was ranting about Lucifer. And the Mason responded by saying, yeah, I love Lucifer. And this was taken as an example of them worshiping Satan. But the point was, and this is what the Mason knew and what the apparent, the one capturing the video didn't, Lucifer is a mistranslation of the Greek phosphoros in the Bible. It actually refers to Jesus Christ on several occasions. It also refers to a dead, apparently like Babylonian king. It never refers to the old serpent Satan. It's not the same word. It's not a proper noun. It's just a description of being giving off light, essentially, being phosphorescent and so forth. As far as the New World Order goes, take a look at Herbert Walker Bush, Daddy Bush, obviously corrupt, complete lunatic, warmonger, ineffectual, puked on the Japanese prime minister after eating sushi and so forth. He was a chucklehead. He was more dumb than W ever was, and that's quite an accomplishment. W just pretended to be dumb. He learned that from his father, but Herbert Walker was legitimately stupid. Anyway, when he made his New World Order speech, a lot of people, Alex Jones, David Icke, and like Henry McCow and all the conspiracy crowds, they take this to mean like, oh, we're going to destroy all nations, we're going to have one global flag, one global anthem, one global border, it'll just be humankind, we're going to homogenize and oppress everyone, grind them down, just be complete tyrants and nobody will stand in our way. Now, the logistics of such a plan I don't think would quite work. I think it would take you a long time to implement it, and you'd probably fail anyway. I'll state my opinion on globalism in a bit. But what he was actually referring to with the term New World Order is quite literally the American order. That is the New World, as in not Europe, Africa, or Asia. The Old World. The New World is the Americas. When people came to North and South America, they referred to it as the New World. The New World Order just means the American order. That means U.S. military hegemony, a monopolar world, which has displaced the bipolar power of the old USSR, number one. That is, communism has failed, totalitarianism is gone, now it's democracies and republics. People are represented by their governments. So you can debate all day over whether that's been effective. I happen to say, yeah, kind of, but, not really in most cases. Just look at our government, how stupid it is, and you'll see an example of this. Or the governments of Europe at the moment, the government of France, Germany, or Sweden, any place like that, is the same exact fucking thing. The New World Order is quite literally American military hegemony, American-style social progress in the sense of equality, justice, liberty, people being able to get ahead. Free markets would be an indicator there. Now, we've strayed a long way from that actual concept, sort of the Americana atomic war stuff. The neocons and neolibs couldn't be further from that. They're interventionists. They don't like free economies. They don't like being not pacifistic, but being non-interventionist. They don't like the idea of freedom, except they pretend that the little people are free and make as though that they're free, while constantly grinding them down with oppression. But the New World Order is not some mass takeover plot of globalism. The real globalism is utterly more insidious, because most people don't even realize it's there. They're, oh, what's globalism? Free trade. Oh, we have free trade, don't we? We don't have trade interventionism, do we? Yeah, we do. That's the problem. Oh, we're capitalists. We don't have, like, central planning. Yeah, we do. That's the problem. We couldn't be further from nationalized, like, libertarian systems, as in nations decide their own fate. There are free market economies and free trade. We couldn't be further from that unless we instituted outright Stalinism at this point. So the idea that we're going to have one flag, one world order, one world religion and so forth, it's just not going to happen. There's no way to do it without causing a massive worldwide civil war that would lead to World War III. And these people know. They're smart enough to know that. I think that ultimately they're a bunch of doofuses that backstab each other, but they're not that stupid. As far as the Illuminati goes, the Illuminati did exist, the Bavarian Illuminati. We're talking an Enlightenment era sort of gentleman's club, a philosophical movement of sorts, a social movement of sorts. It never got particularly large. And it's just expressing an Enlightenment era philosophy. It's roughly akin to the founding of the United States. I fail to see anything wrong with it, ultimately. I made a video years ago that discussed how if there were such a group that were actively endeavoring towards the goals that were specifically stated at the time of the Enlightenment when the group did exist, then I'd be all for it. I'd support them completely. I'd say, fine. Let them, give them control of things. Let them restructure the world. It'd be great. We'd actually have real classical liberalism, real proto-libertarianism. People would be able to do what they want to do. They'd be able to breathe, stretch their legs. They'd be able to go out in the woods. They'd be able to have the job they want. There'd be social mobility. There'd be economic mobility. People wouldn't be at each other's throats all the time. People would generally get along. They'd be under a lot less social stress, and we wouldn't have the problem of multiculturalism or globalism or government interventionism. It'd be great. If we actually do have somewhere in the world a secretive order of Illuminati that hold true to the tenets of the original Bavarian Illuminati, like they still exist and they are still pulling strings, let's hope all this weird crap that goes on in our governments is just to push people into realizing how shitty it is so that they overturn these orders themselves and institute a libertarian world system. Let's hope that that'd be the best case scenario. It'd be brilliant. I hope it's true. I don't think it is, but ultimately I would support it if that were the case. People would be more free. There wouldn't be oppression. There wouldn't be central planning. There wouldn't be globalization. There wouldn't be half of the crap that goes on now, and the other half would be severely reformed and tolerable. So I'd be all for that. As far as other secret societies, groups of elites like at Bohemian Grove, for example. Bohemian Grove, that is a mock-up sort of temple act. That is, the cremation of care is it's just sort of a weird ritual that they perform. Most of these people are old. They're rich and eccentric. They live in big cities typically. They do get stressed. So this ritual surrounded by, they're drinking. They're probably fucking each other and doing drugs. Yeah, they're just trying to relax and have a good time. It's like a form of really high-class vacation that they pay innumerable amounts of money to attend. Who cares? Really, who cares? Any middle-class person can partake in the same sort of ritualism if they choose to organize it as thus. And they can do the same thing. The fact that you happen to have rich and powerful people gathered in one place doesn't always mean that the sole purpose of them gathering is to screw other people over and discuss their plans for the world, how to destroy this people, how to overthrow this regime. That's not necessarily the case. They have to relax too, just like they also shit. They also sleep. They also they eat. They do other normal human things. They get sick. They get injured. They die eventually. The fact that they're part of this sort of cabal of really rich, out-of-touch, warmongering corporatists doesn't mean that they aren't simply given to the same human inclinations as anybody else. The fact that they've got the limo and the swimming pool doesn't mean they don't need a vacation once in a while. I assume that for people like Bill Clinton or people like Bill Gates or the Rockefellers or something like that, it gets stressful figuring out new ways to fuck people over. And so you need a break from it for a few short days or weeks or whatever. You don't have to think about fucking other people over as effectively as possible. And you can meet up with people that you're actually competing with every other part of the year. And you can just go skinny dipping or get drunk or something. It must be a little bit relieving to them. I think it's a weird ritualism. It's certainly not rooted in any authentic pagan beliefs. Sort of the owl is Moloch sort of stuff. No, it's not. This isn't a Moloch statue. It has nothing to do with Moloch. It's just, I don't know. It's just some fucking club that they formed to prance around and piss in the bushes. Nixon talked about it being, in his words, faggy, saying, "Oh, it was the most faggy thing I ever saw. I was pissing in the woods. They were all naked." He actually had nothing but bad things to say about Bohemian Grove. It's actually funny if you listen to what Nixon said regarding the Bohemian Grove. Listen to it. I'll link in the description. It's hilarious to hear him talk about these things. But is it occultism? No, not really. The Masons are not an occult order. In fact, they have a similar, roughly, view of witchcraft or sorcery that you'd find in any mainline Protestant church. So it's kind of out on that. The Bohemian Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati, or whatever modern incarnation might exist or might not, they probably were reading occult literature in a philosophical sense, but they had a tendency to be skeptical of what they would term as superstition. They were a social and philosophical movement given to trying to overhaul social order, apparently in sort of a classical liberal, typical Enlightenment era perspective of the academics and intelligentsia of the era. So yeah, they probably did study a lot of occultism, but only for its philosophical content. It's like, George Washington talking about seeing angels that predict the future, Benjamin Franklin going to orgies at the Hell Devils Club. They did these things, they just did. They were a little bit of a libertine movement of sorts. As far as the New World Order, there is no such order. Unless you're talking about the American order, I would conject here that Herbert Walker's just a crock of shit. His son was a crock of shit. All these idiots are crocks of shit. When they talk about a New World Order, they're talking about ushering in American military hegemony primarily, because we couldn't be further from capitalism. We couldn't be further from free markets and free trade and people being at liberty and at peace than what we are now, unless we transitioned into, literal Stalinism or Maoism or something like that. It would be difficult for us to find a system that is worse than the interventionist quasi-central planning that goes on in DC right now, indeed in the European Union even to a greater extent, which is why, economically speaking, they're failing right now. Most of this is not occultism. I class it under the occult because it needs explanation from somebody who has studied the occult. The number of similarities between Enlightenment era and, slightly pre-Enlightenment era occult texts and the words of early philosophical movements like the Illuminati or like our own founders. The similarities there appear to be due to the fact some of these grimoires, the Grand Grimoire is an excellent example. If you read between the lines, and the Grimorium Verum contains a little bit of the same information, part of it is a treatise against monarchy and against tyranny. That is true. Part of those are philosophical. That being said, most of it is more literalistic. Most of it's not philosophical. I have a feeling that an intelligent reader was supposed to get a slightly different meaning from that part of the text than a reader that was more what they would consider vulgar, a peasant, someone who is half literate. If the peasant is reading it, they're not reading between the lines, they're not thinking critically about it. To them, it's just a spell book. To somebody within the intelligentsia, something like the steganography, sort of a cryptography of an early sort, or something like the Grand Grimoire, the Grimorium Verum, some of these texts have a philosophical meaning as well. Both in the numbers and letters used in some of the original editions, but explicitly stated, especially in the Grand Grimoire, oh, Europe is fallen, Europe is terrible, and Satan prowls it openly now because of these evil priests and the monarchy. It reads like something from the Reformation period, from someone who's just really pissed off, they're tired of the infighting, they say, fuck the church at that point. That's essentially what it boils down to. So, mostly not an occult topic in pure form, but one that has to be explained by somebody who has read a lot of the philosophical occult works that would have been available in many cases, other than, the 19th century, like the Quack manuscripts or powwows or something. Most of this stuff would have been available to any literate, upper middle class or a mercantile level or gentlemanly figure within that era. It would have been available. They would have been reading this stuff. That doesn't mean that they were practicing literal ritualism. That's about all. Peace out.